Ooh, this one is really heavy. Interesting one. It's a time for package from China. Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. In today's video, we have maybe a cheaper solution to play your Neo Geo games. Arcade at home, and there's actually a multi-package from China, because in here we're finding the power supply. We do have all kinds of cool goodies that we're getting with this particular device. So it's a 12 volt 8 amp, but I can tell you this thing is so lightweight, I don't believe them if this is going to be a real 8 amp. In here we're finding all kinds of different connections, because this device has the option for as video, component and the old school connection. So, but what is it? This is what we call the Neo Geo MVS. But let's chit chat about it, the system and all of the different capabilities, because this thing is kind of cool. We do have different versions when it comes to, let's say, the console, and I mean particular when it comes to different, let's say, inputs and all kinds of cool things. But let's take a close look at it, because this thing does look like an AES, but it has a built-in MVS system. So when it comes to the MVS and AES part, we have all kinds of different consoles. What I love about this thing, that this thing has the, let's say, appearance of an AES system or a console. However, if you're going to be implementing the games, it's going to be an MVS console. And that makes it so much cheaper to actually play and collect games. But let's do a quick chit chat about the difference between an AES and an MVS cartridge. You can already see that the MVS come most of the time without any, let's say, any packaging or box itself. However, there is a version that comes in a cardboard box. For example, this game over here, Super Side Kickers, and do I say it correctly? Yeah, Super Side Kicks 2. Sorry, did mispronounce that. So this is actually the original kit, implementing everything that we're needing for getting all of the cool things in your arcade machine. So yeah, and what it is with these things, this is not like a fancy box like the AES counterpart. You cannot, like, say, put the MVS in the AES and the AES in the MVS. That is not possible. The cartridges are, however, super cheap sometimes. I picked up this from Dragonfly, a collector and also a store that has all kinds of cheap MVS solutions. This is Puzzle Bobble, and I think I paid like $25 for this. So what is kind of like disappointing with the MVS cartridge, we don't have this fancy case like the Xeno Crisis. We can also buy this particular game for the MVS version if you want to. However, the cartridges are completely different, and even when you're looking at the bottom part, they cannot be used whatsoever. You can see that the PCBs are completely different size, and yep, it's not going to be doing any good. So we cannot change it out. There are converters out there so we can use it, but I would not really recommend using that. Yeah, these cartridges are absolutely massive, but you can just plug them in and just enjoy yourself some old school real arcade games. However, the system itself looks kind of similar to the AES, including the reset button over there. So at the front we're having a slider on and off switch that we also have with the original AES system. That is kind of cool, and when it comes to details, I love it. Connection wise, we do have some interesting options over here. We do have the option for an original controller of the AES system or the CD if you want to, but what's even cooler, we have a USB. Yeah, we can use USB pads on the Neo Geo. And for the stereo sound, we also have the option for a headphone jack out. A lot of these connections are similar to the AES, beside of course the USB connections. And connection wise, it's quite a deluxe model. We're having the component mode, so we can use it on a modern TV. And of course having an S-video out and the original connection for a normal SCART cable. And last but not least, the input for the power supply, that's just a typical barrel jack connection. And then of course we're having different kind of signal outputs, but also a different result. I already mentioned before, if you're going to be using just the AV out, it is a little bit of an interference over here. Full RGB is more colorful, quite bright, but I think it's one of the best ways to play when you're having a CRT, of course. And if you want to go into the component mode, also here we do have an overall good signal output. And later on this video, we're going to be checking it out when it comes to a monitor and doing a straight capture from that. But when it comes to the signal outputs, overall they are not bad at all. But if you're going to be deep diving in original hardware of Neo Geo, so particularly when it comes to the controllers, we do have 3 options over here. So in the left corner, we're having the Neo Geo CD controller. So don't get me wrong, it's like, this is not my favorite controller. It is an amazing joystick, but the form factor itself, it's not that I hate it, but it's not my most favorite. The one I most of the time use is this original Neo Geo AES controller. You can buy them separately on, let's say, different websites, and maybe in the future we can even find these modified Neo Geo X to AES models. There are all kinds of cool modifications also when it comes to the buttons, but the feedback of these things are just great. And of course, having a very nice micro switch joystick. And last but not least, we're having one of my other favorite ways to play. If I don't want to play with a big stick, we can just use this controller with a tiny micro switch underneath. And I can tell you, the first time you're going to be playing this is such a cool overall experience. But this is what it is when it comes to the original controllers. And later on, maybe in some other videos, we're going to be discussing some other, let's say, controllers from China and cheaper solutions. Collecting and some games are going to be so much cheaper for the MVS. However, there are some other cool options out there. So I'm just having the 4, let's say, normal black cartridges, and I already shown you the translucent one. And I mentioned before that you can buy these very cheap sometimes, but don't get me wrong, where some games are still a couple of $100 freaking dollars if you need to buy them, but it's so much more cheaper than the AES. But there is another solution you can also buy that's going to be making all of these cartridges unnecessary. Another cool way to play, not a perfect way, is this multi-game card. Yup, they made one for the Neo Geo, and this is going to be such an overall cool experience. So you can buy this thing, as I say, the MVS version quite cheap, but these cartridges, without a box, they're like super cheap, but take consideration we have different versions. So yeah, when you're looking at the game list itself, it's absolutely massive. And most of, they say, the legendary games are on here. There are still a couple of them missing. Son Goku 2 and Art of Fighting 3, if I remember it correctly. And of course, they are yellow. I understand they also have green and translucent, but don't know sure if it's going to be the V3. But if you're going to buying this like separately or an old model, you can pick them up for not a lot of money. So one of the things of the UniBIOS is that we can get into the special menu, the in-game menu. Yep, we can pause the game and we have even the option implement cheats. And I think that's absolutely great. Oh, there we go. So in here we can implement all kinds of cheats and basically have like all kinds of wicked things going on. However, I did notice that my mapping of the buttons isn't like it's supposed to be because my C is over there. So this is a little bit weird. However, getting into the game, in here we're kind of having like invincible, unlimited ammo and all kinds of craziness. I think it's absolutely a lot of fun enjoying these games and just cheat sometimes. And of course the cheating mode is only possible with the UniBIOS implemented. So one of the things I did notice is we're getting into the Neo Geo system and using the AV out or the normal cable, you will notice that the signal is not the best out there. I've noticed like if you're going to be plugging an RGB cable in this, you're going to have such a better overall experience with the quality. Okay, so let's get into the database and let's see. Out of fire. Yep. And that's one of those things that I love about the UniBIOS. So where I'm not the guy who would love to do cheating, having like invulnerable mode or something like that. This is just like fun. Just have like a shmup with an auto shooting. But when it comes to playing the games, it's absolutely the same because the system itself will utilize an original Neo Geo hardware with some extra things attached to it. But later on the teardown, I will show you what I mean. But how about playing some fighting games? Yeah, I love breakers. This is more like the Street Fighter Alpha of Neo Geo. And this controller is so great. I love it. But how about playing with an Xbox controller through the USB? And that seems to be working just fine. It even indicates which controller I am actually, or what kind of play I'm having with the certain controller. So if you just want to use a different controller than the Neo Geo, this is so super convenient. And the simple reason, because if you're going to be using this Xbox 360 controller, they are like super cheap to buy. And you still have like an overall great experience. Of course, it's fun to get the original hardware, but the original hardware when it comes to the controllers, they are so expensive. But let's test the A-Beta meets the SNK controller, the Neo Geo controller, wireless. That is even more cooler. And also it comes with real micro switches. This is such a great controller. It can be used on all kinds of different, let's say, systems. But hey, let's test it out with the Neo Geo. Let's plug it in and yeah man, just have some fun to see how it actually works. And does it work and how does it play? So where the controller is connected with the dongle, it's unfortunate that we don't have any connection going on. So that is unfortunate. So far I tested the 8-bit SNK controller. Does it work on the Neo Geo controller? Beside the problem with the controller of the A-Beta is a little bit of a downside. However, yeah, not everything seems to be working through the USB. Where the Xbox 360 did work, so maybe in the future we can just try it out and see if we can get something to work. However, let's take a close look at the game itself. Ah man, let's cheat. Let's go to the database. Let's see, infinite time. And there we go. Okay. Haha! Alright. Like I finally beat the guy. But I was already wondering how about the component signal out. The only thing I did notice with this that it utilizes almost the same stuff like RGB and the image quality is absolutely amazing. However, I did notice that my LG monitor didn't recognize the signal, but my Samsung does. So take note that it is possible that your monitor can have problems with it. Well, it's kind of weird, but it is what it is. But let's do a quick gameplay and I can tell you that the image quality is quite good on component. So if you want to connect this to a modern television, it's not going to be a problem whatsoever. You shall need to use a converter from component to the HDMI solution to plug it into let's say an IPS panel. This is not like say maybe the ultimate way to actually play, but it is cool that we can actually do this because not many will have a CRT or the possible option to buy an affordable CRT that utilizes all of the signal inputs you're going to be needing for Neo Geo. The only thing I did notice with some Neo Geo games is some of them look really alike. Like this Puzzle D-Pon is the same situation, that this looks absolutely the same like Puzzle Bobble, only it's slightly different. Viewpoint is one of those other games I just love to play. There we go. Oh, and I pressed the wrong freaking button. Yeah, the problem is with the MVS system that somehow all of my buttons are not mapped like they should be. And again, the image quality, I do love it. It's stretched out. I can change it out with this particular monitor if I want to. But that is one of the things that is a little bit of a downside to this machine, that we don't have an aspect ratio button. So if you're going to be using it is on a modern television. So quality wise, this case is absolutely not bad at all. But let's do a quick teardown. Underneath we're finding even a sticker I didn't show you before saying the Neo MVH 12 volt for 4 amps and having over here the port, what kind of port you're having and what are the plus and minus. So the next thing we need to do is open it up and you can see you have these tiny stickers over here giving you more like this situation that you can't open it up, yada yada yada. But let's be very careful. Let's remove these things because I need to stick them back, because the rubbery fit they're using actually on these things are great, and they're like a pain to remove. Yep, because inside I just want to give you a quick tear down. So all 4 of them have been removed. Next thing that we need to do is just remove the 4 screws. So for maintenance wise you can just do this fairly easy, but I just wanted to show you this teardown simply because this is more like a hybrid device where they're using new technology and old at the same time. But let's do a quick teardown and let's see what we're finding in the inside. So if we're going to be removing the shell, there's only one cable need to take and tear down with, and yep, I'm already ripping it off when it comes to the shell. Crap. But let's take a close look at the valves. So they're using let's say very thin and basic springs, only one for each, say dust cover, but that's the only thing. And the small PCB over here for the micro switch. It's loose, so I need to tighten that part up too. So next up we're having here the PCB and everything when it comes to, let's say, in the internals, and it's quite interesting to see what they all, let's say, cooked and did with this. But over here you will see the original mainboard, and this is what I mean with the hybrid. So you can just actually see that the back over there, having the cartridge slot, is also still belonging to the original PCB, and having over here the stamp of the SNK and even the production over here for 1998. So this is actually the original part, and with hybrid I mean they implemented also an extra PCB around it, so you can just clearly see this is made in 2022. So this side actually utilizes everything when it comes to the electronics and getting the signal to the RGB S-video or just a component. So this is actually how they did and managed to make this. We have seen it before. So at this point I do wonder, like, what is up with these connectors. So let me know in the comments if you know what these two are actually for. But there was another thing I did notice. That's like when you're looking over here, they implemented some bridging when it comes to, like, say, the new capacitors. But when you're looking at the right over here, we're having like a stack and tree or forest of all kinds of capacitors, but I think they're still original. So I cannot say that they replaced them. I hope they did, because it would be a little bit of a downside to this. Because if you're going to be paying quite a lot of money for, let's say, a completely like modified MVS system, like if these things are going to be start leaking, completely destroying the original mainboard, that would be like a big fail. Because they is not like really cost effective if you're going to be replacing them. But if it breaks down, it's not going to be a big problem. You can just actually see that it uses the JAMA or the actually like the slot over here. So we can slide in a new mainboard if it's going to be needing that to do in the future. So that is actually one of those things. You can replace the mainboard if you want to. But I don't know if they're going to be using the same kind of versions when it comes to the mainboard, of course, because we do have different editions when it comes to that. So I'll give you like a quick look on both of the numbers they're using. And yeah, replacing it is possible if you're going to be having some problems. But again, you can swap it out with another original one, where they did install the Neo buff modification over here. So if you're going to be replacing this full mainboard, you also need to replace one with the new Neo buff or the replacement chip. But I'm guessing that is going to be for the UnibioS? But thanks to, like, say, old and new technology bringing it together, I just love it that we do have like the component signal output and new options when it comes to that. I do wonder how long it will take if they're going to be implementing HDMI in this, so you can just plug this thing straight into a modern monitor. This hybrid device is a kind of a cool idea. It looks like an AES, but it has like the MVS parts on the inside. Having now the option to play games for cheap, a couple of dollars, you can sometimes pick up these MVS cartridges. Not all of them, of course. The only downside is the power supply over there. I found a little bit of a cheap feel to it. But if you're going to be combining this with a USB controller or the original Neo Geo controllers, slap in a game like Puzzle Bubble or slap in a multi-game card, and you have like a lot of different games to play. Have the relocated home only for a different price if you also want to start collecting. Thank you all for watching. Consider subscribing, hit the little bell, and it would be great to see you in the next video.